It's another week and another new episode of the Granny Panty Podcast. I'm your host, RubyLynne. If you'd like to follow me, the host, you can go to IamRubyLynne.com where it's all things Ruby. If you'd like to follow the podcast, keep up to date, you can go to thegrannypantypodcast.com. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This week's guest, I am so excited about because I know nothing about payment processing for the adult industry or any high risk industry. And so I had the pleasure of meeting the owner, one of the owners of Pays earlier this year. And I couldn't wait to get him on the show. I needed education, and hopefully you will find this very interesting and learn a little something yourself. So help me welcome Doug with Pays.com. I am so excited to have you on the show this week, Doug, with Pays.com, which is a billing processor. And I have so many questions. I can't wait for the viewers to learn more as well as myself. I had the pleasure of meeting you earlier this year at XBiz LA. So welcome to the Granny Panty Podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. And yeah, it was great meeting you. And I'm excited to delve out some information about the processing side.
Yeah, there's so many questions. And I admitted to you earlier before we went live that I know nothing about the billing side. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to kind of delve in and have you share like the whole process. But
hmm
maybe let's start. How did you get in to building a company? Because you did build what, the largest payment processing in the adult industry anyway?
I did. Well, I helped. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I was part of the group CC Bill that started here in Phoenix, Arizona, back in 1998, I think, 98, 99. So we were very lucky. We were in the right place at the right time. And we grew tremendously overnight. So that's how I got my start. But prior to that, I have a PhD in sports psychology. I was an athlete, and so really, I'm a psychologist, and who knows how life works, but there was this
Yeah.
opportunity and it was a friend of a friend type of thing. So I jumped in to help out, and we were, I think, a total of maybe 10 people.
Wow.
And within maybe 2 years, we were over 200 or 300 employees. So
Wow.
we grew very quickly, but it was at that time that all of these online sites were coming online. And we
Mhm.
specialized in the high risk, the adult arena,
Okay.
because we had good contacts with the banks. And so anyway, we built that.
Mhm.
I then continued later on. In 2012, I left and started Pays
Okay.
and Pays.com, and with a couple of partners. And we are in the same arena. We do little different type of banking. We provide different services than CC Bill, but we're in the same arena working with the same people.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So how I got here? Yeah. By luck, by who knows, you know? Yeah.
That well, you know what they say, it's not who you know, or no, it's not what you know, it's who you know, I think sometimes.
I think sometimes it is. And it's gone very well. And I've been so busy. I always thought I'd go back to sports psychology, and I've been too busy, and it's been going very well. So I'm plugging away and sticking with it.
That is so cool. So
Yeah.
tell us about the early days when you created CC Bill. I mean, what drew you to kind of the more high risk sites? I mean, did you have intel that you knew they were going to have issues? How did you know that?
Uh, I no, I don't think we did. I think by
Mhm.
happenstance or luck probably is a good term. We were a hosting company,
Okay.
CC Bill, and
Mhm.
they had what was called Cave Creek Hosting. They still do. They have that. And so Cave Creek Hosting was a hosting entity, and we were hosting websites. And we had this one website who came on and needed lots of space and said, "Oh, by the way, my content is adult related."
Mm.
So the family, the Cadwell family who owns CC Bell,
Mhm.
um, they looked into it. They had their lawyers look into it, and well, is everything's legal and perfectly
Mhm.
fine. So we're happy to help host these adult companies. So
Mhm.
by that one company starting, that then word of mouth, and so that company said, told his friends and told their friends and told their friends. So we started growing on the hosting side, and sure enough, at the same time, right around that first year,
Mhm.
they were having lots of problems with the processing. It was very common for a group to go get set up at a bank, um, and then within months, the bank shut them down
Mhm.
with oh, by the way, we didn't realize this is adult content. We don't allow this.
Mhm.
And that was going on in a lot of banks. So we were approached, hey, can you help us with
Right.
processing? So we looked into it. Well, sure, this is perfectly legal and there's no reason we can't do this.
Yeah.
And it takes time to figure this all out, but there are certain banks in the US that accept certain high risk,
Okay.
and they're few,
Mhm.
and you just have to be associated with those banks. And if you were new starting up, you wouldn't know that. I mean, you would go down to Bank of America, your local bank. Hey, I have a new business I want to start, and it would take a little bit before you figure out, oh, you're not going to accept me, right? So I think by luck and being there at the right time, in the right place at the right time, that's how it all started. And boy, did it grow, because we had two big major competitors go under
Oh,
within the first 2 years.
wow.
There was one called Dakota. Dakota was the first, and they went under. And then there was a big company called iBill at the
Oh,
time.
okay. Okay.
iBill went and they went under. They shut their doors, went under, and overnight we grew in leaps and bounds. So yeah, so I guess I'd put it down to luck, because we were just in the right place at the right time. Yeah,
Yeah, you can't beat some good luck once in a while.
yeah. Well, that comes in handy. It does. It does.
So, as a processor, then you are basically the middle guy between the uh, consumer and the bank, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say, so that middle person, what we're doing is, you have a website, you have an e-commerce site, you want to sell something. We place you at the proper bank that we know, okay, this bank accepts this, first of all, so you're not going to be told no later down the road. And we then set you up with your billing pages, or help with your back end, all of your statistics of the processing
Okay.
piece, so that you can log in and get your information. Okay, well, how many sales did I have today, and how many? So the middleman, the gateway, there's what's called a gateway. You have your site. There is a gateway that runs the transactions into the banks.
Okay.
The banks then, come back and provide the monies being sent back and forth. So there's that. Yeah. So we're right in the middle, like that, like the gateway piece. Our companies, we're in the middle providing you. So it's easy for you. We just say, okay, don't worry about this. We'll get you set up at the bank.
Gotcha.
You'll be up processing right away.
Okay. And then I assume you take a percentage,
Yeah,
a certain
correct.
amount for your fee.
Yeah, that is correct. So here's what's very interesting. So CC bill is what is called, it's termed a third party processor.
Okay.
Now what that means is, CC bill owns the merchant account at the bank. It's their merchant account. Okay. And then they create customer support for you and they provide the statistics, the login, they provide all of that. And for that, at the time, 25 years ago, the going rate was 10 to 15% per transaction.
Okay.
That was your cost. And so that was just amazing. But the reason it was that high was because there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
So if you were in this adult arena, it really is unfair. You can ask
Mhm.
me directly, and I'd say the banks are just very unfair. There's no reason for it. Oh,
Mhm.
oh, we're going to charge them double, triple. So you're paying 10 to 15% for these services.
Mhm.
And then there are other groups who now pays.com is we don't do that anymore. What we do is we take you specifically to the bank. It is your merchant
Oh,
account. Okay. So now
okay.
you're paying the regular rates, which are still higher
Mhm.
for adult groups than if you were non-adult. Um,
Okay.
However, you're talking about 4 or 5% versus going and paying 10 to 15% at a
Okay.
third party, at a third party. So that's my company. We concentrate on putting you directly with the bank, and now your rates are much, much lower.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
you still have if you have a brand new site, it's very easy to use
Yeah.
third party. CC Bill, SegPay,
Mhm.
Epoch,
Mhm.
however you pronounce it. And those are really easy ways to get started, but you have to pay that higher percentage.
Right.
Then as you grow, then maybe it's worth it for you to then go get your own merchant account and you'll cut those rates in half.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're doing a really high volume, yeah, you definitely want lower fees.
You do. You definitely want your own merchant account at that point.
Okay.
But if you're starting and you're small and maybe you don't want to take on your own customer service, you don't want to
Right.
have to do this piece of it or answer the phone, the phone,
Mhm.
you have to have your toll-free numbers. They will do that for you. And in part, that's what you're paying for too. So
Right.
there is that extra cost, but you're getting value for that too.
Okay. Well, that makes sense because I was like, how does this all come into play?
Yeah, yeah.
And so how long have you had Pays?
We started Pays, my partners. I have two partners, and one of my partners, Joel and I both worked at CC Bell. So Joel left in, I want to say 2005. I
Okay.
left in 2011. So in 2012,
Mhm.
is when we started Pays, and we have another partner who was one of our big clients at CC Bill way back when, but he does other businesses, and so the three of us started Pays, and we wanted to start offering the direct merchant account because
Mhm.
CC Bill didn't offer that. So wasn't I didn't leave to go compete with CC Bill. I left to provide a different offering.
Okay. Yeah, I think of it as like the, personal shopper at Nordstrom, you know?
Yes,
You can go and talk to the, salespeople, but if you really want that personalized service, then they come see you, right?
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
If they have a lot of money to spend because they want higher volume, right? That's a
That's
higher
right.
volume transaction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So that
Very
yeah.
cool.
So there's a lot of intricacies within the billing that
Mhm,
that you need to understand. That's going to help you out. Like, do you have 1,000 transactions that are $5? Do you have a single $5,000 transaction? Okay, same volume, but quite a different
right.
scenario, and your costs are going to be completely different based on what it is you're selling.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. And do you deal with other high-risk businesses like the cannabis industry? Are those folks your customer as well?
They sure are, yeah. So again, what's very interesting, this is probably the most important thing to say
Mhm.
regarding this, is that the banks are very finicky and they're also very different. So they all come up with slightly different rule sets.
Gotcha.
And it can be a pain because you can be at one bank, they accept, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we accept this. The next bank over, nope, we don't accept that. And so, it's, oh, geez, okay, which bank takes this? Which bank takes that? Which bank? So now, yeah, for pays, we do take all of the high risk. And depending on what you're selling, we're going to have to put you at a certain bank or a few different banks,
Okay.
depending.
So
So, yeah, yeah,
I know in Washington, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so right across the river, like there everything's in cash for the cannabis industry. You can't use a card, it's gotta be in cash.
yeah, yeah.
Do you see that? I mean, I know we're probably getting off into the weeds about that, but do you see that a solution to that? Because I would think, how could you run your business in all cash? That just doesn't make sense to me.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot of funny stories about there where they're storing their cash and it's a difficult thing because the banks aren't able to accept. Okay, so um, what's the best way to explain it? The banks, for the most part, most every bank that we're going to deal with, they're federally backed. They're FDIC. Okay. And so what that means is they have to go by federal rules and laws.
Mhm.
Even though you're in a state, your state can say, hey, cannabis is certainly fine and marijuana is now accepted and it's free and it's, and we see that being approved across states, right?
Okay.
Um, However, from the start, the federal government still has THC, the drug within marijuana. They have that labeled as a class one drug.
Yeah, I was gonna say Schedule 1.
Okay, so until what's going to happen with the federal government is what's the end game? I think that they downgrade marijuana, and as more and more states vote to allow it, the
Mhm.
federal government will probably have to follow, I would imagine.
Yeah,
But from state to state, boy, there are issues. So it depends on what
I
state you're
bet.
in,
I
and that
bet.
makes a big difference. Now, up in Washington, they're very big. I do know they're very big in growing.
Mhm.
They're certainly fine to grow. They just can't produce certain things and sell certain things. So they're shipping off their crop to other states that are then manufacturing and then selling the product.
Gotcha.
So I know there's a lot of that going on. So yeah, you're right in that. Wow, this is interesting. You just cross right over the border and it's completely different.
Yeah.
So why won't the banks take it? So that's the reason. It's
Okay.
Well, we have to go by the federal rules. Otherwise, we lose our backing by the government.
Yeah.
And the banks don't want that to happen. So now you're stuck at finding smaller banks who aren't FDIC backed. A lot of the credit unions, you know,
Right.
um,
Right.
and so you can find banks, but they're they're harder to find.
Right. Right.
Right. So in that arena, we do allow it because again, we have banks that accept that, and they're in New York, and they're all over the place. We have some in California. We have Now the funny thing is, so they again specifically they'll allow certain things, but they're all slightly different. So one's going to allow this, but you
Yeah.
you can manufacture, you can't sell this one. You can sell, but you have to prove that you're not selling in Washington. Just prove to us that you're not, but you can sell elsewhere. Or
Oh my
there's
gosh.
so many. I mean, seriously, there's so many rule sets.
That's
It's
crazy.
it's a little crazy.
So let's rewind a second. I've been in the industry a little over 4 years. So the very first biggest I guess banking loss that I felt like I was involved in was when Pornhub lost their banking.
Uh-huh.
How did that affect you? How did you guys deal with that? Can you talk to that a little bit? Because that's really the one that affected me, I would say,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
my career.
Okay, so over the years, I've seen this happen, a few times,
Mhm.
and what it comes down to is Pornhub or anybody else. It doesn't really
Mhm.
matter the group. It's the bank that you are at. Okay.
Gotcha.
Now, let's start there. You're at a bank and the bank allows your content. We're perfectly fine with this. Well, the bank, all of these banks have board of directors and they have, and then they have shareholders,
Right.
stockholders. And so there's a political game going on.
Mm.
And some of these banks overnight decide they maybe vote and they decide that we don't want, let's say, adult. They're, okay, well, we just don't want that on our books.
Right.
And so overnight, I've seen banks just shut people down overnight with
Yeah.
no word, and you're gone tomorrow. Okay, that's one. Number two, another reason would be that there are groups in the high risk arena, not even adult. There's a lot
Mhm.
of different areas that are considered high risk by the banks.
Okay.
Okay, there are different things being sold. The nutraceuticals, that
Mm.
that is okay. So nutraceuticals are like, on television when you see a commercial,
Yep.
whiten your teeth. Buy
Yep.
this and whiten your teeth. Buy this, buy that. Buy this lotion, and it's helps your joint pain and all of that. Well, those are considered high risk. So, but why? But why? They're getting a product, and so high risk from the bank is what they consider what might we get a lot of chargebacks or refunds.
Oh,
So it doesn't really matter what you're selling. You could be selling,
gotcha.
you can be selling something you make at home, you
Mhm.
ship it out, but if you get a lot of calls back saying, "Hey, maybe you're not advertising properly. You told me I was getting this and I feel as though I didn't get that. I want my money back." Now, when you create an environment like that, you're going to get lots of chargebacks and and you'll have to put through a lot of refunds. And the bank sees that as a very high risk and they don't like it.
Yeah.
Pornhub was in that arena. So
Gotcha.
they even though they had huge volume, the bank loved the volume and the bank makes a lot of money off of it. It was, this is too much. And
Okay.
if the bank, remember, they have a portfolio of business. And if this adult group, let's say, or this high risk group is creating all of our chargebacks and refunds, our whole portfolio together is starting to look bad. We can get fined by the government.
Mm.
So the bank doesn't want to get fined. Now, not
Right.
just the government, but by the card associations. That's normally where it comes, Visa and MasterCard. They say, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Gotcha.
no, 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 no. You guys it's too much. You have too many chargebacks. We don't allow this. So we're sending these huge fines. So overnight, Pornhub can be in a bad situation and have to
Yeah.
scramble to find a new bank. And being
Gotcha.
as large as they are, that's not an easy thing to do because
No.
if I own a bank and you want to come over in your Pornhub, well, gee whiz, you're so big that you would be 50% of my whole portfolio.
Yeah.
And if we run high chargebacks, that's like, I don't know if I can handle that. I'm going to start getting fined from Visa and MasterCard left and right.
Yeah. So
So I don't know if that all makes sense, but that's
it
kind of a
does.
problem.
Does Visa and MasterCard have, like, a threshold of chargebacks? Like, you can't have, X amount? Do they have something they measure that against?
Yeah, they sure do. So they have two measurements. And so for high risk adult, in the adult industry, you cannot have over 1% in chargebacks
Okay.
or over 100 chargebacks in a month.
Wow.
So if
That's
you're
really low, I think.
it's very low. It's very low. They do not have that put on Walmart. Walmart does millions and millions of transactions. They have lots of refunds and chargebacks, but they don't get held to that rule.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit unfair when you're in this adult arena because they can make up any rule they want because they're the king of the castle. They get to make their own rules.
Yeah. Ugh.
So what has to happen with these groups? You can actually be over 1% in your percentage.
Uh-huh.
Like, let's say you did, you did 1,000 transactions And 1% would be only what, 10
Right, right.
chargebacks? Well, you could have 50 chargebacks. You're at 5%. Well, they're not going to bother you because you're not over the 1% and over 100. But if you get over the 1% and the 100,
Gotcha.
now they're like, oh, nope, time for you to get fined. And then they put you on a program and you have 3 months to get it in check or you're gone.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Crazy.
so
And
they
so
do
does
they have those thresholds for you. Yeah.
your company as the middleman help, the vendor, I guess it would be your vendor, kinda manage that, or do you keep track of that if you see a trend? Is that
Yeah,
part of what you do?
yeah, absolutely. So for all of our clients, we internally are running those statistics. We know exactly which client is running what transactions at what percentages the whole time. We know as they're coming in, batches from the bank, the information from the bank comes in daily, every day. So if you do transactions today, by tomorrow, we have all that information and it's in the system. And so we're monitoring, and that's in part what we do. We help our clients. Typically, we're telling them prior to them maybe even realizing. We're like, look, you're already at 67 chargebacks, and you're on pace to go over the 100. And they're like, oh, whoa, and we're only halfway through the month. So, okay, let's make some changes or do what we have to do we'll slow down the volume. We will, you know,
Yeah.
take actions to make sure that we're not going to go over that 100.
Make some adjustments. Wow. See, I
So
knew
that's
there was a whole lot of inner workings than just signing up to, have a biller on your website, create an account. I figured there was a lot more to it.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
So,
Yes.
what would you say your biggest challenge is right now?
Well, biggest challenge, well, in part is dealing with the constant changes from the card associations, Visa and MasterCard being the largest.
Yep.
They pretty much annually will come up with a new set of rules.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes they leave us alone for about 3 years, and we'll have a good, nice 3 year period where we know nothing's changing.
Mhm.
And but so our biggest concern would be, annually they usually come out in the fall and they say, okay, starting in January this next coming year, we're going to put these new changes in place.
Okay.
And so in the last 2 years they've been making changes,
Mhm.
um, and so it's making it tougher and tougher,
Yeah.
to get people into their processing. So
Right.
the biggest concern I think is always that. From a bank standpoint, the banks aren't going away. The banks that accept this, it's not a scary thing where you think, oh, the government or a new president or a new the new politics. That doesn't really change anything over time. With the banks that have been there are still here and they're going to be there. So there is processing to be had, and there's not anything scary about that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But now, oh, new set of rules. Add three more rules onto the books, this year. Oh, gee whiz.
Ah, that would be frustrating to keep up with.
Yeah, it is. That's the tough part. And as I've told you, the banks, they all get the exact same letter from Visa and MasterCard. It's the same thing. And one bank interprets it differently than another bank.
Gotcha.
So one bank will make certain rule sets, which I'm like, well, why are they doing that? And then another bank will not do that.
Mhm.
So that's frustrating too, because well, it's the exact same rule, and they both think they're complying to that rule, but they've done different things to do that. So that's another thing that goes on behind the scenes.
Sounds like whack-a-mole every year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I mean, we're guessing sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
really, we're like, okay, well, gee, okay, here's a new rule. I read it this way. I wonder what the
Mhm.
bank's going to do.
Right.
And there's a little bit of
Roll
that
the
going
dice.
on. Oh,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
yeah.
So, what do you recommend? Say I wanted to start my own website, which, I think about that a lot of times. So, what's the first thing I should do? Reach out to you or the appropriate company based on what volume I think I'm going to do? Like, how will you know what your volume's going to be, I guess?
That's a good question. I think you probably will have a decent idea based on the volume of to your website
Okay.
itself, whatever you're creating. And then are you going to go buy traffic? Are you partnering with other groups that sell traffic or push
Mhm.
traffic to you? So those large entities are getting traffic from all over the place,
Right.
or are you, and do you have the budget to buy that traffic, or, from Facebook and from
Mhm.
Google and from all these places? Um, in I guess generically, I think I stated earlier, if you think it's going to be very small
Mhm.
and you are in the adult arena, a very good place to start is the third party, is the
Okay.
CC Bill, SegPay, Epoch. That's a great place to start because they'll help put everything in place. It's a very easy setup.
Okay.
Um, to provide your information, get set up under them, and then
Mhm.
you get to utilize their tools.
Okay.
And then let's say you're lucky and you're smart and you're doing a great job. Then you're going to start growing, and let's say you start doing great sales.
Okay.
Well, there will come a time when it makes a lot of sense to you to move away from third party and paying, let's say, 10, 12%,
Right,
and to
right.
go get your own merchant account for 4%,
Gotcha.
because that's going to really cut your cost in half and you're going to save quite a bit of money.
Right, right.
So um, so yeah, when you start, I don't. It's a guess. I don't know how big. Some people they call and we're
Right.
gonna make millions every month. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I sure hope so.
Yeah,
Um,
because if you're
and then
making
they don't.
millions,
And
I'm
then
gonna
they
do
don't.
okay too.
But certainly, but you have, okay. Again, you have an option to go both ways,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
direct, meaning direct merchant account, third party.
Yep.
Third party is easier, but you can pay a lot more for it. If you come directly to Pays, we want to
Mhm.
give you your merchant account, but remember, you need to take on your own customer service. So you need to answer
Right, that's
emails,
right.
okay?
Yep.
And so if you're willing to take that on, then
Mhm.
that's where your savings is quite a bit.
Gotcha, gotcha,
Okay, so yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, of course, we're always there, and I tell people too. I get people sent to me, Doug at Pays.com, and I'll tell them, with what you're doing, have you
Yeah.
thought about the third party maybe, because
Mhm.
they might sell, $100 a week worth of whatever.
Right.
And they're happy to take you on. The bank, with when we place you, they're not really interested in setting somebody up that will do $100 a week. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not really enough. They have some work involved to get set up, and
Right.
that's not worth it to the bank, really. So usually we say, you need to be doing a few thousand a month, maybe 5,000 a
Mhm.
month.
Mhm.
And that is, now you're getting up to get your own merchant account, but smaller third party is really good.
Wow, I've learned so much chatting with you.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I'm just chatting,
Gosh,
trying to throw stuff out. It might be a little over your head a little bit, but there's so much in the banking side
you
that
explained it perfectly.
you have no idea it's going on, but there's all these
Yeah.
changes and things. So yeah.
Yeah, I knew when I had met you and I'm like, "Oh, I want to know about the billing thing," because, just recently Wish Tender lost their
Uh-huh.
banking, and so
Mhm. Mhm.
that was a pain. I use that for my, gift list or whatever, and it's like,
Exactly. Exactly. A lot of people use Stripe and different groups, and they're known for allowing you to set up. And in their terms, really far down there, they don't allow adult content, but they'll let you set up, they'll process, and they'll let you go for 3 or 4 months, and then they turn you off one night and they freeze all your money.
Well, let me
So
tell you, I just got banned from Stripe yesterday because it was integrated in a site I use for time tracking for my assistant, and I wanted to be able to just have everything in one place, and I could just pay her and da da da. And yeah, they within like I'm not even kidding, 20 minutes, I get the email that you're permanently banned from Stripe.
yeah, they're known for that.
So
They're known
I
for
did it. I got permanently banned. I'm just like,
RubyLynne. No,
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 yeah.
oh
So
no. So
weird. Like, how did they even figure that out? I don't know.
yeah, well, internally they're running bots and they're checking every single website for whatever, and because they're forced to do it that way. They
I
you
did
can't
appeal
have
it
enough
and said,
employees look at every website, right?
yeah, I did appeal it and say, wait, I'm a podcast host. I'm an author. Like, I didn't even mention adult anything, but yeah, they're very smart and sneaky.
They are sneaky that way, and yeah, I don't think that's the right way to go because they should be more upfront and
Yeah.
send you on your way to where you actually need to be.
Yeah.
You
Well,
need to be with a bank that does allow it.
they're the only like in this specific program, software program, they were the only payment processor that was integrated, so
Yeah, yeah, there
it's
you go.
okay. I pay her via another cash type app.
Yeah. Well, get to the software and have them integrate some other
Yeah.
options.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
them integrate because that's not a hard thing to do to integrate new other billing options. That would work too. Yeah.
It's fine. It was just gonna be like one less step I'd have to do. It would have been nice.
Right. Yeah. Well, it would be easy, and it
Yeah.
should be easy. Why isn't it easy? One, two, three, sign up,
Right.
process. There's my money. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Little more going on behind the scenes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. Tell
Oh,
people where they can find you.
oh yeah. Now, thank you so much for having me, number one. And yeah, pays.com, Payze.com. And I'm Doug. So Doug at Pays.
I love it. I love
Pretty
it.
simple. Or sales at Pays. And we'd be
Okay.
more than happy to speak with anyone and help them out or send them to where they need to go.
That's so awesome. Well, again, thank you. I will link your site and everything so people can find you, but
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate this so much.
Well, I hope I was able to give you some information and some insight.
You sure did because, being 4 years in the industry, I guess I'm considered still new. I wasn't aware of all of that,
You're a
banking issue.
baby. You're just a baby still. It's, yeah,
I'm a
4
baby.
years, and you learn, so,
Yeah.
25 years into it, and oh my goodness, there's
Yeah.
lots going on. Yeah.
Well, I figured you were the OG I needed to talk to.
I am one of the old ones. The gray hair proves it. It's all going white. So, yeah.
Well, thanks again, Doug.
Ruby Lynn, thank you so much. I really
You're
appreciate you
welcome.
having me on.
You're welcome.